Hi, everybody. My name is Max Timm. I'm the Director of Education for the International Screenwriters Association, as well as the Co-VP of Development for Creative Screenwriter Productions. And I have my own consulting company called The Story Farm, where I work one-on-one with screenwriters. A couple favorite movies and directors. It's a difficult one. The easy one at the top of the list is Frank Capra. My favorite movie is It's a Wonderful Life. And I think what he was doing back then says a lot about not only his talent, but also what he was trying to say, and as far as themes and messages. And he was just extremely talented as far as all the new technologies that he was coming up with, the new ways to tell things, but still focus on story. I almost feel cliche by saying Steven Spielberg would be the second one. I don't, that's a tough one. Like, I don't know if there is someone else that I watch just specifically. I mean, Guillermo del Toro might be one of my favorite people in Hollywood. He's just like this cuddly, incredibly kind man. And what he's doing is incredible. It's tricky. I think I really just gravitate more toward the types of stories people like to tell, as opposed to, ooh, that director is amazing. You know, Greta Gerwig and what she did with Lady Bird was just so wonderfully simple and amazing. But it's more about just gravitating toward the story for me. How I got involved in the industry, it's funny, and this could be a very long story, but I remember being in my dorm room at Holy Cross College, which is right across the street from Notre Dame. If anybody's seen Rudy, I kind of took the Rudy route minus the football. I watched the movie Braveheart for the first time on a TV literally about this big, which was not doing its, service to the movie. But I remember watching the movie, being very, engaged and entertained by it and thinking, wow, that was so cool. But then something hit me when I was looking at the credits of the movie, and for whatever reason, at that time, it dawned on me, these people in the credits do this for a living. And I think part of it was, at that time in my life, I was trying to decide what I was going to major in, what was my future going to be. Was I going to go to Notre Dame across the street, or was I going to go somewhere else? And I made the decision, not necessarily then and there, but shortly after, to focus on majoring in filmmaking in general, but I focused on screenwriting and producing. And my dad still kind of jokes about it. He said, I can't believe that you were basically an art major and you've actually made a career out of being an art major. and he's kind of right. It's a little rare for people who go into the art world in college, and then they're actually lucky enough to pursue that career for the length of their professional life, which I have done. And so I moved into Hollywood. Literally, I moved to Hollywood by way of a semester in Los Angeles. I guess you could say program that Columbia College Chicago, where I was a student, was offering. And it was my final semester of college. And I was with all these other students that were kind of, segueing into Los Angeles in the industry for the first time together. And it was a very healthy, wonderful experience. Scott Marcus, who is our amazing editor, among many other things with the ISA, that was how I met Scott. And it was very cool. I had my first internship with a distribution company. I don't know why I got set up with a distribution company. It was this teeny little independent company, and they ended up going under like within 4 months of me working there. So the internship kind of blew. But then I eventually found my way to Writers Boot Camp, which is a school for screenwriters in Santa Monica. I was there for 6+ years, pretty much managing all of their resources, from the instructors to all the coursework online and live. I was teaching, I was hosting and managing all of the events. I was the executive assistant to the president. I was pretty much wearing all the hats. From there, I eventually made my way to the ISA by a random email that I had sent Craig James, our founder. I don't remember the time frame, but I do remember that I sent him this email through LinkedIn, just thinking, we'll see, because I was looking for a job. And it was probably 4 or 5 months later that he replied and said, hey, well, let's have an interview. And from there, we chatted about what I could do in terms of starting up some new resources for the ISA. The development slate was one of them. Felicity Wren and I bumped our heads together and figured out what we could do in terms of forming the development slate, and then some evaluation services. And it just kind of grew from there. Favorite part about working for the ISA, there are multiple parts. I think, for one, how close knit of a family the staff has become over the years, how much autonomy we all have, but it's all for the purpose of providing support in one form or another for people who are doing everything they can to create some form of a career out of this, ridiculous, as some people may call it, hobby. And we don't want it to be a hobby for our screenwriters. And so there's a very strong intent behind what we're doing. A lot of people have jobs that, they just kind of go to work, they punch in their numbers and they get their paycheck, and that can work for people. But for me personally, I think that's the best part, that we actually have this deeper foundational intent and motivation behind what we're doing. In terms of favorite success stories, I don't know if I have one in particular. There is one that I remember way back when, probably like my second or third year working for the ISA. I was looking through the success stories on the old website, and just tracking those. We were looking for the success stories that the writers post themselves to the site. And I kept seeing one particular writer, who I won't name, or the project name, but he kept posting all of these contest wins for one script, and it was at least 30 different contest wins. They were small contests, but it just kept happening. Like every week, I'm like, boy, this guy's posting another one. So I thought, well, I should probably read that screenplay. And from there, we ended up reading the script and thought this idea is so good. And we helped the writer get that project in front of people, and he was off and running. And I think it got set up for in certain regards. And I don't know if there's anything happening with it now, but it was just this a really natural, innate success story in terms of what the ISA is meant to do as far as the website and allowing us to help writers network. But I think that most recently, it's nice to see in terms of my story farm writers, when I'm working with them, where I have online workshops that we meet every other week. And it's fun to see them announce their quarterfinalist or semifinalist or, contest placements. And most recently, I think I had 6 of my, 15 writers all say that they placed highly in Table Read My Screenplay and Fast Track Fellowship, and they're on to the next round. And so it's positive to see that this is working, what we're trying to do. It may not necessarily for every writer mean huge success, but little steps here and there. I think those are the bigger success stories. It's, of course, we want to see the headline success stories. This person sold this project, or they're having this produced. But it's the little steps along the way as you're building your career that I think are more important. So what's the best advice that I've received? I don't think there was a moment where someone said something. I mean, there were a lot of moments when I was younger, going through middle school, high school, and in college, and my dad was pretty much an advice machine. But as far as the industry is concerned, there wasn't really one moment. I do remember a moment, and this kind of connects to, I think, another question that Molly might be asking me about my favorite industry memory or something. But I remember working one-on-one with an A-list actress, and she has a very, very famous father, kind of top of the A-list level sort of father. And I was working with her on a particular project and giving notes and things, and it came out that there was a similar project that was about to be or potentially produced. And she was asking me about what she should do. And I remember thinking, why aren't you asking your dad? I thought, why are you asking me this? Because her dad had direct experience with this type of situation where he was making a project and then there was another one that came out that was very similar. And I mentioned that a little bit jokingly, but what dawned on me, and I mean this somewhat jokingly, but also in a serious sense, was that at no matter the level we are in terms of our industry experience, our career, professional experience, we don't really know what we're doing. We're all kind of making this up as we go. And we're all trying to figure it out regardless of the level, whether you're on a literal legendary Hollywood, Hall of Fame status, or A-list actress, or anybody else. We're all just figuring it out because it's a project by project basis kind of career. There is no, now you're in, there's no arrival here. There's no, I've arrived and look at how great I am. Even after someone wins an Academy Award, they still have to figure things out for the next project. Just because you're Steven Spielberg doesn't mean it's any easier. It may be easier in terms of the entry point of finding good potential projects, but it's still just as difficult, in a lot of ways, that much more stressful, because that type of person, a Spielberg of the world, needs to constantly produce at the expected level. So it's very relative. And I think that sunk in. I was like, wow, this person is asking me for this advice. And for one, it gave me confidence that this person trusted me. But at the same time, it was like, yeah, we're all just kind of figuring this out as we go. And it made me just kind of settle into this whole ridiculous industry that we're in and that we love. I think, and just to kind of finish this off, and a lot of you who have spent time in the webinars that I host for the ISA on Zoom, and then different classes that I've hosted, podcasts that I've recorded, I've said this many times, and I'm setting this up as if this is going to be some golden nugget of advice, and it isn't. But I think it's so important to be reminded. And of course, I'm saying this because one of my titles is Director of Education, but I cannot emphasize enough how important it is to continually educate yourself. And I've learned this over the years, and it's been drilled into my head so many times that actors tend to read more screenplays than writers. Actors take more classes compared to writers. When an actor moves to Los Angeles or New York, they know that they have to join some kind of class or acting troupe or a showcase, or they have to invest in that because it's just part of the process. And a lot of writers tend to not think they have to do that. And if you compare writers and actors from an entry level, perspective, and neither of them are making money, and so the finances are still difficult. But if you're devoted to this, and if you know that you want to pursue this for the long term, you have to educate yourself. Now, on the side of, can I afford to take classes? Can I afford to hire a coach or something? You may not be able to, and that's fine and understandable, but there are still ways to educate yourself. Read screenplays. You can find virtually any script online, read them, compare it to the movie that you're watching. Constantly be in this process of just being a little bit better than you were the day before, and stop putting all of this emphasis on the one script that you're writing as if that's the one that's going to make or break you. It probably won't. The next one may not either. The third one may not. The 10th one might not be the one that makes or breaks you. But what have you done across the process of those 10 scripts? You've improved. You've gotten to know who you are that much more. And you also now have this resume of potential projects that could get you work in one way or another. So you have to educate yourself constantly, whether it's watching YouTube videos like this, or participating in the ISA events, reading screenplays, paying attention to when you're watching movies and TV shows. I think it's the most important element of being a writer.